right, colored pens up. Calculators, of course, are out already. Let's see how we are doing with distributive property and combining like terms. I gave you a couple of beastly questions. Number one, what did you get as your final expression? Kadir, John, and then Kayla in the back.
Negative 2b squared plus 5b cubed.
Okay, what'd you get, John?
I got negative 2b squared plus 5b cubed.
And that's what you said, right? So you two agree. Kayla? So we have some disagreement. Nathaniel?
I got negative 2b plus 5b cubed.
So that's also different. Dalton?
I got 5b cubed minus 2b squared.
So I think that's the same thing that they said, but you switched the terms around. The correct answer is negative 2b squared plus 5b cubed. Dalton, yours is the same thing. You just switched the terms around, and that's perfectly okay. We'll talk about how to do that in a moment. Number two, write a simplified expression. What did you get? My quiet students, stay on your toes today. I will call on you no matter what. We'll start with Chris, and then we'll go to Edgar, and then we'll go to Shannon. Chris, what'd you get?
15 plus 3x.
Okay. What'd you get, Edgar?
15 plus 3.
You had the exact same thing. Shannon? Okay. Third person want to chime in with their answer? All the same people? Sebastian?
I got 4x squared plus 6x plus 27.
Okay. The correct answer is 3x plus 15. Or 15 plus 3x, that's the same thing. So now let me rewind. Now that you know the answers, let's make sure we understand why. So let's take number one, and let's do this. To make our lives a little easier, let's take out part of the question, just so we can focus for a moment. You might want to do this in the future with your thumb or your fingers. You might want to block out part of a question so you can focus on part of it. And so now, could someone explain what this is an example of that I've got left over? What's that an example of? We got a whole bunch of people who know. Fung? That's a distributive property. So we take the term outside, multiply it here, multiply it here. Could someone say this for us? How do you say that? How do you say that? Sebastian?
Negative 2b.
Very good. How do you say this over here? How do you say that one? Kayla over there?
Negative 5b squared.
Ah, she caught what I was getting at. That's a negative 5b squared. So let's do the first arrow. Negative 2b times b. Negative 2b times b. What's b times b? What does that become? B times b. Chris?
B squared.
B squared. So this becomes negative 2b squared. Now let's do the second arrow. Negative 2b times negative 5b squared. Negative 2 times negative 5. What do we get? Negative 2 times negative 5. Alexandra? Negative 2 times negative 5? Positive 10. And what about b times b squared? What do we get with that? B times b squared. Valerie? Very good. B cubed. So the result of the distributive property is this. So now I'm supposed to combine them, right? So it's negative 2 plus 10, and I get 8b cubed, correct?
No.
Oh, why can't I combine those? Kadir?
The exponents are different.
Very good. That was a fantastic explanation. So that's it. That's all I can do. But there was another whole part to the expression. So now there's plus negative 5b to the third. Now are there like terms? Kalasia, what do you think?
Yeah.
What are the like terms?
7b cubed and negative 5b.
Very well said. So now we have a positive 10 and a negative 5. We add those together and we get positive 5. So we've got negative 2b squared plus 5b to the third, and that is it. Comments or questions on how we did that? Okay? No questions on number 1? Okay, number 2. We seemed like we had a decent amount of success. Give me a thumbs up if you got number 2 correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I guess I lied. We had a very low level of success. Okay, one of my thumbs up students. Nathaniel, could you tell the class a key word from the question? Like the most important word that tells you what to do?
Perimeter.
Perimeter. And what does that tell you to do?
It tells you out of all the assignments.
Add them all up. So all you had to do was add up 3 plus 4x plus x plus 3 plus 9 minus 2x. Add them all up. What's the next thing I'm supposed to do? What's that phrase, another phrase that you learned last time? Kayla? Combine like terms. We just did it over there in number 1. Now I've got 4x, x, negative 2x. Any other like terms? Edgar? Yeah. 3, 3, and 9. 4x plus 1x is 5x, minus 2x is 3x, and then 3 plus 3 plus 9 is 15, and that is where we get the 3x plus 15. Comments, questions on either of these? Go ahead, John.
I got the same answer as you, but I did it 4x plus 9 minus 2x and 3 plus x plus 3.
Excellent. So you did the top and the bottom first, and then you did the left and the right? Great. Fantastic job. And you ended up with the same answer, you said, right? Fantastic. Anyone else? Comments or questions? Good. We're doing well so far. Today we're going to start the pretty sizable section of our curriculum that involves solving equations. Today's lesson is the first lesson where I address one of the topics on the back bulletin board. I explained to you already that all the other things we've studied so far weren't up there because those were all foundation skills. Everything you've learned up to this point is a skill that you need to just do any of these things up here on the back bulletin board. So we're going to start today with one-step equations. And it should be a lot of review for some of you, for most of you. But then next time we're going to quickly get much more complex. So the understanding is that you have developed some level of competency, some level of understanding of all of those foundation skills to give yourself a chance at success. So, solving equations. First of all, we're going to be using the idea of inverse operations. Operations that undo each other. They're basically opposite each other. Addition and subtraction are inverse. Multiplication and division are inverse. Any questions so far? Good. Transformation. When we solve an equation, we use transformations. What we are doing actually is we are transforming the equation into a solution. The key is that a transformation is done to both sides of the equation. So this is a critical part right there. Both sides. And you're going to hear this over and over again. And then what are we going to be studying? We are going to be studying the type of equation called a linear equation. A linear equation is an equation that when we graph it, forms a line. Linear. Look at the first four letters of the word. L-I-N-E. It forms a line. Also, the variable in the linear equation, the highest variable, has an exponent of 1. So we're going to jump right in and start reviewing and clarifying the process of solving an equation. If you're missing any of this, leave yourself a line or two and you'll fill it in later on. So, example 1. So we're going to start simple and we'll increase complexity over the course of the lesson. So we're going to solve the equation x minus 9 equals negative 20. The first thing that I ask my students to do is to draw a t-table. And we're going to start out doing the t-tables, and then later on, maybe a month from now, if you don't need it anymore, then you can stop drawing it. But for now, we definitely need it as an organizational tool. Here's what you do. Draw a horizontal line under the entire equation. Draw a vertical line through the equal sign straight down. We have now clarified the left side and the right side of the equation. We always start on the side that has the variable. So which side has the variable in this first equation, Davis? The left or the right?
The left.
The left has the variable, so that's where we're going to look. More specifically, we are going to look at the operation and the number. The operation and the number. So your eyes need to be trained to look right there. Minus 9. That's what you should be looking at. And now we are going to use the concept of inverse operations. Inverse meaning we're going to do the opposite operation. This says minus 9. We want to do the opposite of that, so we're going to add 9. And this is called a transformation. Since it's a transformation, we must do it to both sides. So we are going to add 9 to both sides of the equation. We are going to draw a little squiggly line like you learned to do in elementary school when you were learning how to add. Your teacher taught you to do something like this. And then you added down. Well, that's the same thing we're doing, except at a much higher level. So we draw a line, and I usually draw it a little squiggly so I can tell the difference between that and my line up here. And now we are going to work down. X plus nothing is x. Negative 9 plus 9 is 0. Negative 20 plus 9, what do we get from that? We're my masters of computation. Michaela?
Negative 11.
Negative 11. Once the variable is completely by itself, meaning there's no other values near it and its coefficient is 1, we are done. Also, in math, we don't write the 0. We don't need to. What we will do is we will just cancel the two numbers out, like that. And so, finally, we write x equals negative 11. 1 second, please. Before I circle my answer and give myself a pat on the back, I'm going to do a mental check, which means I am mentally going to put the negative 11 in place of the x, and I'm going to check and see if it works. Negative 11 minus 9. Does that equal negative 20? Yes, it does. Now I can confidently circle my answer. Kayla, yes?
Yeah, isn't that related to what Ms. Cooper said about, like, your priming it the variable longevity?
Yes. And that's what we're doing. Getting the variable alone. Okay? Any other comments, questions for part A? So let's just build from there and keep adding little details in. Part B. N minus negative 8 equals negative 2. First, we start out by drawing our t. So now I gave away the first one. Let's see who was paying attention. Where should my eyes be focused? Try and be as specific as possible. What should my eyes be focused on now? Edgar?
On the number and
Be specific. Tell me exactly what to look at.
the negative 8 and minus sign.
Yeah, this is what I should be looking at. Minus negative 8. And now we're going to do the inverse of that. Now, when I say inverse, I'm talking only about the operation. So I'm only going to inverse that. You don't inverse this, just the operation. So we are going to add negative 8 to both sides. That's what is meant by inverse operations. Draw my line and work down. N plus nothing is n. These are going to cancel each other out. And now I have negative 2 plus negative 8. What do I get from that? Valerie? Negative 10. Before I once again pat myself on the back, I'm going to do a mental check. Does negative 10 minus negative 8 equal negative 2? Well, let's see. Keep, change, change. So that's negative 10 plus 8. So I do get negative 2. Dalton, yes.
Why can't you just do that? Like, just substitute the n.
I did. What do you mean?
No, I mean like before.
You mean, why can't you do it mentally?
Yeah.
Well, turn around and look at the third poster on the top row. Are you going to do that mentally? Okay. So here's the idea that I didn't want to do a lecture about, but yeah, so where it says multi-step equations, we're not doing that mentally. So to prepare ourselves to do that, we have to learn with this. It's training wheels, right? When you learn to ride a bike, you most likely learned with training wheels. After you ride a bike with training wheels for a little while, then what happens? Other than falling down several times, for some of us. After you ride the training wheels for a while, what do, Caleb?
You learn how to ride a bike.
You take the training wheels off. You stop using them. Or maybe some of you are still using them, but that's a special case. So, you stop using the training wheels because you don't need them anymore. But right now, we're just learning to ride the bike. We need the training wheels. I know it may not seem like it, because right now it seems like it's so easy, but trust me, I'm saving you a lot of heartache later on. Michaela, you had a comment that you wanted to make?
No.
You sure? Okay, so now I have the same idea, except a couple of kind of special cases. So let's look at part C. Don't worry about part D yet. Still a simple one-step equation. We're still going to draw our t because we want to get used to using the training wheels so that we can be successful. But here's the tricky part. So Edgar helped us out on the last one. Where should I look this time? So it's a little confusing because it's in a different order. Where should I look this time? Ziomara? Yeah. But what operation is it really? Yeah. That's the part that's a little tricky. Because this positive sign, this plus sign, actually goes with the y. So really, you have to understand that this is plus 10 because there's really a plus sign here. So what's the inverse of plus 10? What's the inverse? Fung? Or minus 10. Very good. So we're going to subtract 10 from both sides. This will cancel out. And we are left with y equals, what's negative 7 minus 10? Negative 7 minus 10. Sebastian in the back. Very good. Negative 17. Now, when you're writing a final answer, you got to get used to writing the variable on the left and the value on the right. And of course, you got to check and make sure you got the right answer. So you put the negative 17 here and do a mental check, and it does work. Any questions about that? Okay, so I want to quickly do part D because I'm a bit behind schedule. So I'm going to do the first part quickly. And so I know to focus here. So I'm going to subtract negative 2, subtract negative 2. This cancels, and so I know keep, change, change. So that's going to be a negative 6 equals, but look at this, negative b. Well, that's not isolated and that's not done. I don't want negative b equals negative 6. I want to know what b equals. I wanted to say b equals something. So what do I do? Anyone know what you do? We got 2 people who think they know, 4 people who think they know. Kadir?
Really, the negative b is actually on the opposite of b.
That's right.
So the opposite of 6 would be negative 6 would be 6.
That's right. So this is really the opposite of what I want, which means I need the opposite of that. The easy way to do it is just flip it like a pancake. Flip it, flip it. Flip this side, flip everything on the other side. So you flip this to positive, you flip that to positive, we get b equals 6. Okay? Comments, questions on how we're doing so far? On what we're doing so far? Good. Let's see how you do on your own. Checkpoint number 1. Got 1 question. It's going to be quick, 1 minute. So what'd you get? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 confident people. We'll start right here and work our way around. Nathaniel, Kayla, Sebastian, Edgar, and as we need more people, we'll go in here.
Z equals 8.
Okay. Kayla?
Z equals negative 8.
Okay. Sebastian? Z equals negative 8. Okay. Edgar? Z equals negative 12. So 2 people agree, but then we got 2 other answers. We got Dalton, Valerie.
Z equals negative 2.
There's 3 people who said negative 12.
Z equals negative
4 people who think it's negative 12. Sebastian up front.
Z equals negative 12.
Z equals negative 12. We've got overwhelming support for Z equals negative 12 because Z equals negative 12. So, I already know where the confusion came in. So let me back up for a second. We drew our T. What was I supposed to look at? What was I supposed to focus on? Shannon?
Minus negative 2.
You said that perfectly. Minus negative 2, which means I have to plus negative 2 to both sides. Many of you plus 2, not negative 2. And so this cancels out, and you get z equals negative 12. Okay? Don't worry, you'll start to get it as we go along. Now we're going to go a little bit faster. Now, different type of equation. A multiplication equation. What do we do to solve it? Well, in my class, we start out by drawing our t, and we use inverse operations. So that's multiplication 8 times. That's what this says right here, 8 times. That's what I'm looking at. So I need to do the inverse operation. What's the inverse of times? Kayla in the back? Divide. So Alexandra, if I'm going to divide, what am I going to divide by?
Divide 8 by 8.
Very good. I'm going to help her say it really efficiently. Divide both sides by 5 words. Divide both sides by, and then the number. So 8 and 8 will cancel each other out, and we are left with the x. No need to use your calculator. It's a fraction. Just put negative 3/8, and that's it. You want to use your calculator? Wonderful. It's a waste of time. And that is the solution. Any questions about that? So, no questions? Because now part B, yes, Kayla, go ahead. It can be, but that's an extra step that's unnecessary. Okay? I'm not saying it can't be a decimal, I'm saying don't bother. It's not worth it. Okay? Fun?
So we have the test like thing that makes it. So fraction and decimal thing. We can correct.
They have the same value, but what I'm telling you is, see, a lot of you are still afraid of fractions, and you need to stop. So what I'm saying is, stop converting things to decimals, leave it as a fraction, and deal with it. Learn to deal with it. All right, so part B is here for a specific reason. It's an easy question. You probably don't even need to do anything. You can probably do it mentally. But that's not the point. The point is to learn how to be successful for those hard questions that we're going to talk about next time. So we're going to do the inverse operation. The inverse is division. But what am I going to divide by? Here's the tricky part that people mess up. John?
3.
So that's the mistake that a lot of students make. Is you're inversing the operation, don't inverse the sign. This is times negative 3. I want to inverse that. I want to divide by negative 3. Don't divide by positive 3 because then, does negative 3 and 3 cancel each other out? No, the only thing that will cancel this out is if it's a negative 3. So you have to divide both sides by negative 3. This cancels, and we're left with y equals 15 divided by negative 3, it's negative 5. If I plug that back in mentally, that is the correct answer. Does anyone have any questions on multiplication equations? All right, let's see how you do on your own. Checkpoint number 2. 1 minute. Simple question. What do we get? Got a lot of confident people. We'll start with Chris, Kadir, Davis, Fung. Chris.
X equals 1/2.
Okay, what'd you get?
X equals negative 1/2.
Okay, Davis.
X equals negative 1/2.
Okay, Fung.
I got 2.
You got what?
I got 2.
So we got some disagreement because we got 1/2, we got negative 1/2, and we got 2. What do you think, Alexandra? X equals 11. We got some massive disagreement here. What do you think, Daniela? X equals negative 1/2. What do you think, Stephanie? X equals negative 1/2. The correct answer is 1/2 or 0.5. It's positive 1/2. So let's explore why we seem to get so confused, because you did exactly what I said not to do, I think. You draw your T, and we're going to divide. Divide both sides. What are we going to divide by? Edgar?
Negative 22.
We're going to divide by whatever number is here gets written down here. This will cancel. This is a negative. This is a negative. Negative divided by negative is a positive. 11 divided by 22 is 0.5, or if you just simplify it as 1/2, that's even better. Comments, questions? All my students who said negative 1/2, do you see the mistake you made? Okay. I feel like some students are getting a little antsy. We have a ways to go. Class period's nowhere near over. We got some work to do, so take a slow, calming breath, and we're diving right back in. So we covered addition and subtraction. We covered multiplication equations. What about division equations? So now we have x divided by negative 3 equals 60. So we want to know how to solve that correctly. Well, what's the inverse of division, Michaela? So now, this says divide by negative 3. The inverse of divide is multiply. So we are going to multiply both sides by negative 3. If you multiply by positive 3, you are going to mess up the whole thing. The only thing that will cancel this negative 3 is this negative 3. If you put a positive 3, then that is a mistake. So this will cancel out, and we are left with our x equals, and now 60 times negative 3. What do we get when we do that? Matthew? Negative 180. Now I'm going to do a quick mental check before I circle my answer. Negative 180 divided by negative 3. Does that equal positive 60? Yes, it does. So now I can confidently circle this, knowing that I got it right. So that's one nice thing about this part of math and algebra, is that you should know if you got it right or not. Let me say that again. You should know if you got it right or not. Part B. Just to make sure we're understanding. So I helped us along with the first one. Let's see who can help us along with the second one. What are we going to do? Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people. Kayla in the back, and then Alexandra. Kayla, what are we going to do first? Good, so let's simplify your whole statement. Let's just say multiply both sides by, good. Multiply both sides by 9. And then this will cancel. And Alexandra, what do we get with negative 25 times 9? Negative 225. So now we do a mental check. Does that work? Yes, it does. That is correct. Any comments or questions on division equations? All right, let's see how you do on your own. Checkpoint number 3. You got 1 minute. All right, what do we get? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We'll start with Janae, Stephanie, and then Valerie. What'd you get? Okay. So you two agree. All right, we have some agreement. W equals 36. Now we're starting to understand. Give me a thumbs up if you got checkpoint number 3 correct. Good. Put your thumbs down. We got almost everybody. Good. We've got one last instance. It's the most challenging, but you'll be okay. The last example, how to deal with an equation where the coefficient is a fraction. So, you learned how to deal with a multiplication equation. So let me show you how this is really a multiplication equation. If I took this away, then it would be 3m equals 15. Let me show you how this is also a division equation. If I took this away, then it's m over negative 4 equals 15. So in actuality, when you have a fraction as the coefficient, you have a multiplication and a division at the same time. Don't worry, you don't have to do both, because there's a little trick. Does anyone know what the little trick is to solve this? Oh. We are not putting anything into a decimal. That's going to make your life miserable. Because if you put this into a decimal, you're going to get a big mess. Ziumara? Yeah, we use reciprocals. So, first we draw our t. Then maybe you would start reading what I wrote in parentheses to give yourself a little help. So, what is meant by reciprocal is you take a fraction and you flip it. Meaning you take the bottom and you move it to the top, and you take the top and you move it to the bottom. When you do a reciprocal, you keep the sign the same. The sign does not change when we talk about reciprocals. So what we're going to do to get rid of this is we multiply it by its reciprocal. So we're going to multiply it by 4/3. What that will do is it will turn this into a 1. But as we've done with everything else, we must do it to both sides. So we're going to multiply this side by negative 4/3. This will cancel out, and we're left with m equals. And now I am not doing a lesson on how to multiply a whole number times a fraction. So if you don't get it, I cannot help you right now. But when you multiply this 3 and 15 have a common factor. That's a 1, that's a 5. 5 times negative 4 is negative 20. So the value that we got as the solution is negative 20. Now I want to check and see if that makes sense. And is 3/4 of 20 15? Yeah, it is. So that is the correct solution. Yeah. Well, again, I said I can't teach you fractions right now. If you don't get how I did that, we'll get a review in somewhere, but right now I can't do it. So now I want to just make sure we understand how to do a reciprocal. This is 7/8. So could someone help us? What's the reciprocal of 7/8? Matthew?
8 over 7.
Very good. So we're going to multiply both sides by 8 over 7. This will cancel with this, and we're left with our W. That's what we wanted. Now, multiplying. 7 and 14 have a common factor of 7, so that's a 1 and that's a 2. 8 times 2 is 16. So W equals 16, and if I check that mentally, it does work. Michaela? Yes, you're right. So it should be the W on the left equals 16. Thank you for correcting me. Nathaniel?
This is nothing to do with math lesson, but can I please use the restroom?
You're going to have to hold on one moment. That's not how you ask either. So, any questions on either of these? Okay. Because of time, I have to give everyone a free point for this part of the lesson. So we're not going to do the classwork. So when we grade our work next time, make sure you remind me that everyone gets a free point. But everyone draw a line across their paper. And your homework is on page 139, numbers 14 through 50 even, 54, 56, and 60. That's 22 questions. You're going to read the next 2 sections. This is incredibly important to read the next 2 sections. And you will have a quiz next Friday. So not this coming Friday, but next Friday. And that will be 3.1 to 3.3. You will also have another formulas quiz next